Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm doing a rapid-fire review of the Glasgow Train Robbery by Salt and Pepper Games. Rapid-fire reviews are a format on the channel where I attempt to give you a brief overview of the game as well as my thoughts and opinions in 10 minutes or less, links and timestamps to everything down below. Speaking of links and timestamps, this is a prototype, all rules and components of exchange, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below as well. Additionally, this channel is sponsored by Allplay, more about them at the end of this video. In the Glasgow Train Robbery, which by the way is based on a fascinating true story in which there was a train robbery where lots and lots of money was stolen, and the way they caught the thieves is because apparently they had their fingerprints on the Monopoly pieces of the game they were playing to pass their time. Once again, a reminder, there are better games out there than Monopoly. Some of them may not even have pieces that would have left your fingerprints on. That is neither here nor there. That's the basic theme of this game. But this is a two-player cooperative experience in which two players take on the roles of these various thieves, the operator and the coordinator, working together to try to manage the thieves as they rob from the train. Appropriate disclaimers in the rulebook about how not meant to glorify, theft and mass robbery and all those things. This is meant to be a game with an interesting theme. To that end, you have your train. Your train is slowly moving along the tracks. Each individual track is the time you'll spend on each of the various actions. You have to carry out a plan in 5 steps. The coordinator is responsible for the first 4 steps of the plan, and the operator is responsible for the last and final step as they heist the train and get off and go running. Each of these steps requires getting various operators on the board into certain spots. This player needs to get one of the blue operators next to the water tower, where they're then going to cash in various tools and then hopefully accomplish that step. It's a little bit more complicated than that. There's various ways. You don't actually have to have all the tools. There's penalties you can pay instead, but you have to have certain steps required, getting your operators there and then having the train be at that location. And once that happens, you can pull off that plan and then you can go ahead and move to plan 2, to the step 2, then step 3, step 4, and finally step 5, which again the operator is carrying out. Each of these is going to get progressively more complicated, utilizing more and more of the various people on the board to be in the right position at the right time. The problem is it's a hidden communication game. There's only so much I can actually communicate back and forth to the other player, so you're kind of trying to work together to figure out which gear each player needs. You need a gun, I need a gun. You need a walkie-talkie, I need a walkie-talkie. How are we going to coordinate who gets what if we can't communicate? But there are various action cards the players can play as well. One of the actions they can do, each player is going to have their own individual action deck, and you have these cards over here that are going to allow you to do various things, gathering more tools, moving agents around the board, communicating with very limited words to the other players, being able to say things like red and gun. I need a red agent and I need a gun, and you can try to give hints to your teammate to hopefully get people in the right place at the right time with the right gear in order to pull things off. That's the basic premise of what's going on here. You have steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You have these contingencies that are popping up. Various cards that the operator is going to have to deal with because when you rest, bad things happen. Suddenly there's something going on with the tractor. You need to get various agents over there and then also again have that gear. And again, you can't communicate this to the coordinator. They just know that there's something going wrong on the board that the operator is trying to deal with. That's the core premise of what's going on here. Everything else comes down to the details, upgrading agents, moving them, how you get more gear into the bag, how this Monopoly token is slowly going to be moving around the board, getting various fingerprints on the agents, because there's only one way to win, which is carry out all 5 steps of the plan. There are multiple ways to lose, from getting more fingerprints on the right operators, from running out of fingerprints entirely, from the train passing any one of the plan steps before you've been able to do that. That's the core idea of this game. There's also a set of 4 modules. You can introduce the modules, mix and match to a degree. Doesn't recommend using all 4 at once, but there are 4 different modules. There's tools, there's wagon cards, there's, I'm trying to remember the modules, tools, wagon cards, there's a revised layer over the board, things you'd have to know more about the game to get more into detail on them. With that said, that's the general overview of the game. Let's talk about my thoughts and opinions, all that stuff, starting off with the first question. Am I keeping it? I don't think I am. Why or why not? For me, the Glasgow Train Robbery does have very fun moments towards the end of the game. The problem is, for me, that happens primarily at the end of the game. I find this is a game primarily about getting yourself set up, and the beginning of the game is very slow pacing. There's not really a lot of threat of losing in the game, at least at the beginning. Towards the end, there is. Towards the end, you have to carry out those last steps of the plan. It starts accelerating. The first few steps, you have plenty of time to get in position, to get things going, and that's because a core premise of the way the game works is you have this tableau effectively, where you're utilizing the agents in the house to get as much gear as possible before you start putting too many fingerprints in the bag that'll get you in trouble. But that means the beginning of the game is very slow pacing to allow you to set yourself up for the late game. But that means that the very end of the game is when you kind of get to see, did you make it all work or not? But the first 3/4 of the game, there's not really a lot of threat of dying yet. It doesn't feel like the tension is there. It doesn't feel like the stakes are there. For a game all about the high stakes, the timing and all that, it does matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's just that you're working towards this thing at the very end, and so you have to play the first 3/4 without feeling a sense of danger, even though if you don't actually work during that time, you are going to lose. So again, it's not a critique on the actual way the game plays out strategically. It's a critique of the feeling I get playing it, where the first 3/4 feels plodding and slow and methodical, and like I'm just running out the clock to a certain extent while making sure that I carry out the plans, while never feeling in any sense of danger, but also feeling like I have to do things because you have to do things. And then the last quarter of the game is when the tension is on. The last quarter is like, okay, I know I'm set up here. I know you're doing that. We're trying to work together. You just move that agent there. I have an understanding. You gave that clue. You just said blue, handgun, good, and we're like, that's all you need. The end of the game does have those fun moments. The first 3/4 feels like a setup for the end of the game. As far as other game recommendations that might be worth checking out, definitely check out Burgle Bros if you look at any of the versions, but 3 is the most recent one that I've played. If you're looking for a cooperative or solo game of trying to pull off a heist with a very different gameplay style to it, and then also if you're looking for something with hidden communication, something that is more reminiscent, the feeling I got, a Core of Discovery Duo. It's actually not currently out yet, but you could check it out on crowdfunding. That also had that same kind of tension of communication, but limited and trying to work together with a partner, just without the heist theme on top of it. As far as a counter opinion, ultimately, if you don't mind that slow burn, this game has several things going for it. The art and production are top-notch, which I expect from Salt and Pepper games to a degree. Their games usually are, but in general, the color scheme, the palette, the theme, the little train moving along the track as the timer, all of that, they knocked it out of the park. And of course, the theme behind this, a board game-related heist theme, which I really appreciate that deep dive over here, and the way they implement it in the game. And again, there's a lot of things that matter as you go through this. There is that hidden communication, that layering of what is it that you need, what is it that I need. When we split the tools, which I didn't really talk about, this whole splitting tools mechanism, how can I get you to infer which things I really can benefit from? How can I look at your agents, what they're overloaded with? There are a lot of decisions to be made in the game. For me, the main thing that held it back is that aspect of the slow burn, the fact that I felt like the real tension came in at the last quarter of the game and not the first 3/4. But if you don't mind that one aspect, everything else in this does work pretty well. Which brings us to final thoughts. As far as final thoughts, unfortunately this one isn't really for me. I'd come in at a 3 out of 5 on this one. I enjoyed it enough, but I wasn't really totally hooked because my most enjoyable area was the finale as opposed to the lead up towards it, where I felt a little bit more aimless. Yes, I have to improve my characters. Yes, I have to set it up, but it really felt like a whole lot of setup for that penultimate conclusion, which thematically is appropriate, but from a gameplay stance, I wanted to feel more invested the entire time, even if it is true that those actions do matter at the end of it. So for me, I'm going to come in at a 3 out of 5, but I do think there's a lot here to enjoy if that main critique I have doesn't really bother you. So I mentioned that Allplay is a channel sponsor. In addition to the other games I mentioned earlier, if you go to allplay.com, you can find a variety of games from Allplay and from their partner publishers. And definitely check out Sail if you like that kind of cooperative vibe of trying to figure out how to get towards your goals while not being able to fully communicate, while being able to read what each other's doing and hopefully work together on that. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.